Hey, how you doing, vinyl community? It's Matt. I'm back again for my third video today. Had some time, so I wanted to definitely do the answering of Mr. Mayo's 5,000 subs contest. So I took care of that one. Then I took care of my Christmas Beatles Christmas Messages box set video. I wanted to get that one done. But this is one I've been wanting to do too because I don't see too much of this on YouTube or in the vinyl community. But as you know, we've had such devastating news the last couple of years with the passing of some great rock and roll pioneers and stars during our period of time. If you grew up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like many of us did, losing Chuck Berry and Fats Domino and, oh my goodness, Tom Petty. And I'm not going to remember everybody right now, folks. I didn't do any research on it, but just off the top of my head. And then for me personally, this one kind of, I think, went unnoticed by some people, or maybe even a lot of people. The average schmo out there probably, person doesn't even think of this person. But we lost recently Pat Dinizio from the Smithereens, lead singer, primary songwriter, and leader of the Smithereens. And I just wanted to do a short little tribute to Pat and the Smithereens because they're kind of a band, a lot of us fans of the Smithereens like to call them America's rock and roll band. They are American rock and roll, pure and simple. They come from New Jersey, and just they blew onto the scene in the late 80s. This first album of theirs is called Especially for You, and it came out in 1986. And they're just such a great band. Pat was such a talented singer and songwriter. And to lose him at such a young age, for me anyway, 62 is a young age in this day and age. He passed away not too long ago, and just blew me away and made me very sad, similar to the way Tom Petty bummed me out, and losing Fats and Chuck Berry. It kind of makes us all look at our own lives and realize that, life goes by, and it goes by fast. And in a blink of an eye, we go from being teenagers and in our 20s to middle age and beyond. And, I'm dealing that right now, going on 57, and still feel like myself. And yet I look in the mirror and I go, wow, you're getting older. I got children that are men now and a grandson. And so, but it's tough because when you think of a loss like Pat Dinizio, it's like, geez, he was, to me, one of the newer rock and roll stars. The Smithereens were from my period of rock and roll when I got into them in the late 80s, into the 90s and beyond. They were like one of the newer rock bands for me, going back 20 years or so ago when I was in my late 30s or 40s. They were like one of the current bands, and such a vibrant, great band. And so I just thought I'd show you some of my stuff and tell you some Smithereens stories along the way. I don't have a lot of vinyl by the Smithereens. I'm going to show you a lot of CDs because I got into them in the late 80s and into the 90s and beyond, and so that was when I was in my heavy CD period. So I don't have a lot of vinyl, but I am starting to collect Smithereens vinyl as I come across it. I'm hoping to complete their collection one day of their vinyl. But I do have their first one, Especially for You. I have a hype sticker that's still with it. Talks about them a little bit, breaking out to the scene. Here's the back, just covering the price on it. Here's the back. Here's the song list. I mean, I'm not going to sit and go through every song by them. You know them. I mean, you know the Smithereens if you're a fan. You know what great music they have. Here's their second album from 1987, 88 period. 88. And it's called Green Thoughts. This was one of my favorite Smithereens albums right here, Green Thoughts. So many great songs on it. From 1988. Okay, now believe it or not, that's all I have for their regular vinyl. But again, I do have Especially for You, their first one from 86 on CD. Okay. Green Thoughts, 1988. This is probably their most famous album, the Smithereens 11. Their third album has the big hit, A Girl Like You. They had several hits, many hits, but A Girl Like You is probably the one, if you're not too familiar with the Smithereens, you would know the best. What a great rock song, A Girl Like You. great. This is a great album. I want to get the vinyl on this as soon as I can. The next one was Blow Up. Okay. And this was from 1991. I believe 11 was from 89 or 90. A Date with the Smithereens. Again, going into the 90s. I don't have all the years and stuff, but great little album. This is a great popular album. A lot of people who, if you're not heavily into the Smithereens, this would be one I would recommend if you can find it on vinyl, or definitely get the CD, is Blown to Smithereens, the Best of the Smithereens. This is the one to get, folks. This has all the hits on it, as you can see. I'll hold it up there for a minute for you. Just such a great band, great rock band. It's so sad to see Pat pass away. I've seen the Smithereens in concert several times, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute, because I got to meet Pat Dinizio and tell you all about that. Another live in concert CD, which is very good. That's one thing about the Smithereens. They were, wow, they kicked butt live in concert, folks. They were just fantastic. This is like a rare and unreleased stuff, like, you know, alternate takes and, you know, B-sides and stuff. It's called Attack of the Smithereens. Really great stuff. This is one of those extended versions one where you get live cuts of their bigger hits. This is like a series. This is one of many of different groups this label has put out. It's Sony or CMG or somebody. But it's extended versions, it's called. But it's basically just the Smithereens live in concert. All right. What they did, what was really cool, is that a few years ago, they made an album called Meet the Smithereens. This is great. They did the entire Meet the Beatles album in their style. All right, tracks 1 through 12. I Want to Hold Your Hand, same track order, right through Not a Second Time, number 12. This came out in 2007, 10 years ago. I highly recommend this, Meet the Smithereens. It's a great album. They cover, I like this. What is a smithereen? My cover's broken here, but highly recommend it, folks. And then, after they did that, they did one called The Smithereens Besides the Beatles. Besides the Beatles. Where they did some rare and alternate Beatle cuts that you wouldn't expect them to do. Like, Thank You Girl, There's a Place, I'll Get You, You Can't Do That. Ask Me Why, Cry for a Shadow. They do a cool instrumental of Cry for a Shadow. P.S. I Love You, I'm Happy Just to Dance with You. If I Fell, Slow Down. I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, and they rounded out Some Other Guy. I mean, it's a cool Beatles cover album they did here. So the Meet the Smithereens one and this one, highly recommended. Okay, if you're just a Beatles fan, you're not that into the Smithereens, at least get these two, folks, because if you're a Beatles fan, you'll love these two. They do a great job. And on top of that, for the in 2014, for the 50th anniversary of the Beatles' Washington, D.C. Coliseum concert, the Smithereens play the Beatles' Washington, D.C. February 11th, 64 concert. There's the Smithereens there, but you notice how they do the cover, kind of like in the style of when the Beatles played the Coliseum. The Smithereens play the Washington Coliseum concert that the Beatles played. And they do it just in the same order as the Beatles did. Roll Over Beethoven, From Me to You, I Saw Her Standing There, This Boy, All My Loving, I Want to Be Your Man, Please Please Me, Till There Was You, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, Twist and Shout, Long Tall Sally. Cool CD, folks. I forget what the label looks like, just a plain black label. But if you can pick this one up, this one's harder to find. You might have to get it at their website. But the Smithereens play the Washington Coliseum concert by the Beatles. Okay. Then they did, I heard this was an obligation to their record company. The Smithereens play Tommy in its entirety. And folks, you might say, oh, why do I want that? I got the original Tommy. Folks, I'm telling you, as your friend here in the VC, this is worth getting. The Smithereens Play Tommy is a classic. It's a great, great album. It's a picture the entire Tommy album, all the different songs from the Who's Tommy, but done in the style of the Smithereens, by the Smithereens. It's phenomenal. You can't understand how great this is. The Smithereens Play Tommy. And they did this, I don't think they wanted to do it. I think they did those Beatles tribute albums. They were, they loved doing that. And their record label wanted them to do this. They wanted them to do a tribute to Tommy. And they really weren't into it from what I understand. They said, nah, we really want to do that. We kind of want to do a new album. We haven't done a new album in like years, since like the 90s or something, or whenever their last studio album was. And the record company said, well, I'll tell you what, if you guys will record Tommy, do a tribute to Tommy, we will pay or budget out you doing a brand new album. And so they said, okay, we'll do it. So they recorded Tommy, and then lo and behold, in 2011, they came out with this album right here, The Smithereens 2011. And as you can see, I have it signed by all 4 members of the Smithereens, Pat included. This is a great album, folks. You notice how it's been modeled after their Smithereens 11 album from 1989 or so. This one's called 2011. This is 2011. But it's a great, great kick-butt rock and roll album. The Smithereens 2011 is awesome. Awesome, awesome. Such great songs. It's a fine addition. And if it ends up being their final album, it's a fine addition to the Smithereens catalog if this ends up being the final studio album, unless there's some unreleased stuff out there that they put out. But this is a great brand new studio album within the last few years from the Smithereens. Highly recommended. Okay, and again, I've seen them live a couple of times, and let me tell you about that. These guys are so gracious. I've seen them several times, and on some of the shows you don't get to see them afterwards, but on a lot of them, the guys will come back out front. They'll set up at a table. They'll just want to meet the fans, shake your hand, talk to you. They're just so genuine, so down to earth, so giving to the fans, especially Pat. He was just so outgoing, so gregarious, personable, down to earth. I mean, how many more superlatives can I use for this guy in this band? They're a people's band. They're a person band. They're a fans band. They care about their fans, and just so happy to have met Pat and spent time with him. And as a matter of fact, Pat signed this album to me. As you can see, this is his solo, Pat Dinizio, Buddy Holly. And you know me, I'm a huge Buddy Holly fan, so when Pat did a tribute album to Buddy Holly, I was all over it. And this is a beautiful album, folks. Highly recommended, Pat Dinizio's Buddy Holly. Highly recommended. It's a fabulous album. He does justice to Buddy's songs, and I think you'd love it. Pat Dinizio, Buddy Holly. And thanks to Pat for signing that for me. God bless him. And finally, folks, I can't show you the whole thing, but I have a double vinyl of the Smithereens framed, which I hang in my music area here. This is a double album. This has the Smithereens B-sides, The Beatles, and Meet the Smithereens, which is the tribute to the Meet the Beatles album, is the other vinyl that's in this. And if I had this out of the frame here, you would see on the other side is the cover of Meet the Smithereens with the little bobblehead guys standing up. But the way the gatefold goes, this is the front of the double album. And as you notice, all the guys signed this for me back in 2011. And there's Pat's signature up here in the upper corner there. And the other guys signed it for me. Just great, great guys. So nice of them to sign an album for a fan and meet a fan and spend time with you. So this is a real good keepsake of mine, signed by all 4 Smithereens. And again, I just don't think that you're going to see a lot of tribute here, unfortunately, on YouTube for Pat and the Smithereens. So I thought I would do my little part. One of my favorite rock and roll power pop bands. I'm sure Stephen Schnee, who's into power pop, knows all about them and stuff and loves them. Some of you other pop people out there and power pop people. But here's me, sans beard, no beard, But I thought my final little thing to show you today would be with one of the times I did get to meet Pat Dinizio. And this is the Fest for Beatle fans. I met him a couple of times at shows. That's where he signed my albums and CDs for me. But I happened to be at a Fest for Beatle fans a couple of years ago. And lo and behold, I'm walking around with my son looking at stuff in the marketplace. And I see Pat Dinizio standing by one of the vendors. And he's got the single of the original picture sleeve single of Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane by the Beatles. He's got it in his hands and he's looking at it, like checking it out to see if it's something he wants to purchase. He's a Beatle fan to the end, Pat. And so I see him and I say to my son, I go, "Oh, Chris, it's Pat from the Smithereens." He goes, "Oh yeah," because my son has been to the show with me. He goes, "Oh my God, yeah." Now other people are walking around him, not even noticing him, and I'm like, to me, he's like one of my musical heroes. I love the Smithereens. So I went up to him and I'm wearing my John Lennon New York City t-shirt, as you can see. No beard, no sunglasses, no hat. I'm all shaved down, clean, right? And I go up to him. I go, "Hey, Pat, how you doing?" I forget what was the last show I saw him before. I go, "Hey, I'm Dave. I saw you at such and such show, up my way earlier." And he was so gracious. He stopped what he was doing, turned right around and said, "Hey, how you doing, man?" Just really cool guy, and shook my hand and gave me a big hug and stuff. Just what a great person for the fans he was. And I asked him if I could take a picture with him, and he got right next to me and said, "Absolutely, sure, anything for you, pal." Just really so accommodating. So my son snapped this picture of us together. So here's me and the great Pat Dinizio from the Smithereens. God bless him. God bless him. He's not here anymore. Rest in peace, Pat. Gonna miss you. So sad. They had some shows coming up after the new year here. They were scheduled to play some shows backing up Dave Davies from the Kinks. Oh my God, I can only imagine how good that would have been. I definitely would have tried to get tickets to that if the Smithereens were backing up Dave from the Kinks. So sad to see Pat pass away. And I just want to do my little tribute to him and to the band, the Smithereens. I highly recommend checking out their music and Pat's music if you get the chance. All the best to you. Again, I'm doing this right before Christmas also, so I'll say Merry Christmas again and Happy Crimble. I hope you enjoyed this little tribute to the Smithereens. I don't anticipate a lot of people will watch this. It probably won't get too many views, being it's kind of a group that you really have to be into to want to watch a video about them. But, God bless Pat Dinizio and the Smithereens. And thanks again, folks. This is my little tribute to Pat. All the best. God bless. Bye-bye.